Hello, hello, Project Bring Me to Life listeners. I am excited that you are here with us today. This is Shannon Shine here. Usually your host is Silaman, but he is watching Mountain Shine Creative right now. And I have an awesome guest with me today that's going to talk about a really important topic. And I would just like to introduce Kim. Would you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you come from?
Hi, I'm Kim, and I'm originally from Silver Spring, Maryland. And I currently live in Friendsville, Maryland, on a 60-acre farm.
Cool. And can you tell me a little bit about fracking, which is why you're here today? I know you do a lot of different activism and different things against fracking, but for our listeners who may not know, can you explain what fracking is?
Sure. So fracking is a natural gas extraction method. And we've been fracking the earth for a long time. There's vertical well fracking, which is just straight down drilling, and gas comes out for 50 to 70 years. And now we've learned this new method of hydraulically fracturing. And this is not only vertical, but it goes down for Marcellus shale, but there's shale basins all across the U.S. But under us in Garrett County, there's Marcellus. In Allegheny, there's Utica. And so they'll drill down about 7,000 miles or feet till they get to the Marcellus shale. And then they'll go horizontally about a mile across that shale region. And they'll detonate explosives along that horizontal, and that fractures the Marcellus stone. So after that, they take anywhere between 3 to 7 million gallons of water, and they inoculate it with various chemicals, some of which are known carcinogenics. Others, we have no idea what they are, and really nobody knows what happens when they're all mixed together. And sand, silica sand. And so they pump that under really high pressure down the vertical and horizontal cuts, and it further fractures the shale. And the sand holds open the fissures so natural gas can slip out really fast. So this is a method that we've been doing more recently. It's really taken off in the last 15 to 20 years. And science is running to catch up and try to figure out how it's impacting the environment and our health. And so that's just the act of fracking itself. And there's a lot more infrastructure needed to move the gas that's extracted. And that includes pipelines, refineries, compressors, power plants, export facilities, and so on. And all of those also have impacts to society, the environment, and so on.
So you mentioned a pipeline. Is this similar to, or basically the same thing as the pipeline a lot of people were fighting against in North Dakota?
So in North Dakota, pipelines, they're what's moving the gas and oil across this country. Now the ones in the Dakotas are moving, I believe that's moving crude oil down to Texas. I can't speak fully to that. Right. But these pipelines would be moving natural gas.
Yeah, I was just trying to give people who might still be a little confused about what it was, something on a larger scale to kind of relate to. Because a lot of people heard about that, the different water pipeline incidents. And even in a simpler version, basically the fracking is they want to put gas under us instead of using renewable energy, correct? Am I wrong on that?
They want to put gas under us. Maybe might not be the best accurate statement.
Right.
But that is another infrastructure that I'm concerned with around fracking, because we do store gas underground. But yes, we could be extracting energy from various renewable energy sources, but we are still, for some reason, extracting energy that's from underground. And
okay,
and yeah, it's concerning.
Just clearing it up for me, because I mean I've heard so much about fracking. I've been watching your progress and fighting against it, and I've been hearing so much about it in my community. It's a big thing right now. You're part of the No Frack Frostburg, and Cumberland's still just trying to kind of get on board with that. I've realized that it hasn't necessarily hit Cumberland as hard as it should, because so many people think Cumberland's not going to be affected. And what people, I don't think, realize is if it's anywhere near us, it's going to affect us. It doesn't matter if it's in our city specifically. If it's in the city next to us, or even the county or the state next to us, it's still going to affect our water, because water is always moving.
Absolutely.
So we've touched a little bit about on what fracking is. Can you tell me what are some of the things, or let's start with, why are you passionate about fighting against fracking? It's obviously bad, but what makes you driven against it?
Well, I've always been what some people call an environmentalist, but I also believe that we're all environmentalists. Nobody will drink gasoline in a cup in front of them. We all know that's going to hurt us. And if it hurts the planet when it spills, then it's going to hurt us. And we all know to protect ourselves and the earth from that. So I've grown up with two scientists. My mom and dad both educated me about climate change. So I've always been quite aware, and I've always picked up trash and, done what I could growing up. And at this point, I've come to realize that the biggest impact that I could have on the planet is to farm food and localize our food, because it takes so much petroleum to not only grow the food, but ship the food the average 1,200 miles to get to us. So I became a farmer, and I'm studying permaculture and trying to put those practices in place. And a big part of that is protecting the land from things like fracking. And I found out that they're trying to frack Western Maryland, and I live in a town that's right up against West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And so we're really, like, if we allow fracking, we're ground zero. There's land for compressors sold already. There are leases surrounding my farm. So I quickly started educating myself on what that actually means, and visiting places in Pennsylvania and West Virginia and seeing how it's impacted communities. And I instantly became a fractivist and just was absolutely passionate about stopping this, because you're right. It's not something that stops with, these borders that we call states and countries. It's more fluid than that. It's watersheds and it's air. So,
right. And once it's allowed in just a few states or places, which, I mean, I'm sure it already is, obviously, but the more it becomes allowed, the bigger of a problem it's going to continue to be. And not only our country, but other countries, and other countries have banned it. Some countries are just doing it. And it just seems like a growing problem that you're doing a very good thing by standing against it now. And I like the word fractivist. It's a good word. So what are some of the things that you've done to prevent this? I've seen some different videos. I've heard a lot of different things that you've been doing specifically, but there's a crew of you that are going around doing this. I know that you've been handing out petitions and different stuff. What have you done for the process?
Well, first I freaked out.
Yep. It's a good way to start.
Just reading about this stuff it gets your blood boiling. It just doesn't make sense, and it always comes back to money. And so first I just started researching really in depth, calling industry, going to well pads, talking to employees, and talking to families that have been impacted. And then I started writing all, the legislative people I could reach and find emails to, and calling, and then Chamber of Commerce, and just writing, and hours online writing emails. And then I found activist groups that are working to help ban fracking, and the Don't Frack Maryland Coalition is a group of groups that are actively working towards a fracking ban. And so I got connected with them, and it kind of helped relieve some of my anxiety around, oh my gosh, this is happening, just freaking out, into like finding solidarity and like, okay, it's not just me going crazy.
Right. It's a lot of people are standing against this. And
yeah.
There's a movement. It's become a movement.
Yeah. And so it helped having some organization and spreading out some of those duties, and kind of narrowing down, activities that we can do that can actually help educate the public and and how to target legislation. And so I joined Citizen Shale, and they're a Western Maryland activist group, predominantly based in education. And we did a lot of movie viewings and a lot of educational talks. We've done a lot of legislative organizing, getting people to come and show up and share their opinions. So that happened, and then it just got to the point where our legislators were not representing all of their constituents' views. So I felt so called to walk across the state of Maryland with another friend, fractivist of mine, Erin Boyd, and her and I walked from Oakland, Maryland, the Garrett County seat, to Lusby, Maryland, and we followed the water, and we went from where the well pads would begin to where pipelines are causing eminent domain issues with people in Hancock and West Virginia, in that town right next to West Virginia, or Hancock. Why am I forgetting it?
I know. I can't think of it off the top of my head either.
Anywho,
Frederick, Hagerstown.
So we went from Hancock, where the pipelines are being proposed, a compressor that was put into place in Myersville, Maryland. The town Myersville was sued for trying to stop the compressor, to down to power plants in Brandywine, Maryland. There's 5 power plants, 2 new ones being proposed, natural gas power plants. There's a civil rights lawsuit going on to try to stop them. And then ended our walk at Lusby, Maryland, where there's a natural gas LPG, liquid natural gas, compressor, refinery, and export facility being built 3 miles away from a nuclear power plant. So we just showed all of the infrastructure that fracking poses on our state, not just the wells themselves, and found a lot of support along the way.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to find a lot more support the more you keep this building and keep speaking out and speaking your mind and explaining why it's bad to people, because there's so many of us that we don't understand it yet. And someone that is educated in it and has been researching it for a while, once you explain it, it's like, yeah, that's terrible. Like, why would people do that? We've got several people in our chat room that are just like, boo, fracking's terrible. Yeah. Shout out to like Nick and Sarah and a couple other people I saw in the chat room. But why do you think that the government or the different entities that want to do this fracking, why do you think there's so much resistance against other options, more safe options and things like that?
I would say money. Money is always something to trace. And, well, we've been subsidizing this industry for a long time, and this is what they came up with. This was their alternative energy to bridge us into renewable energy. And there were a lot of falsehoods being shared, false claims being shared with even the Sierra Club, and the government widely accepted this practice without really knowing what it meant, to the point where, when Bush was in office, his administrators were able to exempt oil and gas from almost every environmental law that was ever put into place during the civil rights movement. So there is no super fund to clean this up. They're not regulated by the EPA, to the point where we finally got the EPA studying this recently, a $26 million study, and they found that they need to do more research before they can make any claims. But so science is running to chase up with this. Why are they doing it instead of renewables? Good question. But really all it always comes back to me, is money. And yeah, we've been subsidizing oil and gas for a long time. And I'm grateful we've had oil and gas. It's got us this far. But yeah, I think it's time we move above ground and start looking for resources and investing in resources that will carry us into the future.
Yeah, I think it's easier to fix and evolve or things that you can see, like bringing the situation above ground. Once we put it below ground, I feel like people are just like, they forget about it, or they think it doesn't affect them and they don't see it. It's like no see, no worry, no tell, or any of that. But once they have to see where our energy is coming from and different things like that, I think it makes people think too much. So they just, like you said, the money, and it's just easier to put it out of sight, out of mind. But it's really important to find other alternatives. I've talked to several people. They're like, we have these like wind turbines that are ready to go, but they're meeting resistance because people would rather frack and do gas and different things like that for energy. And it's a frustrating situation.
It is, and it's not very simple. Alternative energy isn't like a one wham bam solution. It really needs a diverse grid, and we need to. Our grid is really old, and we're losing a lot of energy with the way it's set up now. So renewable energy to me is like 1,000 different options, and we all have to be working towards. And I like what you're saying. It's something that we can see. And what's really exciting to me is when you put solar panels on your house, you can see, before they change your energy box, you can see that, it's running backwards, and you're like, wow, I'm making energy, and you get to see how much energy you're using and how much you're producing, and it gives you an incentive to use less energy because you want to allow the panels to make it all. And I think if we did that with biodigesters and we were able to make methane from our cow poop and really good fertilizer that's not off-gassing, and geothermal and building green infrastructure, and there's so many solutions. Windmills, but the weird thing with windmills and solar, a lot of it we're leasing out, and it's being sold out of state even, or out of county. And I really like cooperatives. I like the idea of people owning the power, and it's produced for them. It's localizing that power, and they're making the money off of it. And it's empowering in so many ways.
Yeah, someone in the chat room, Keitha, I believe is how she says her name, says that maybe it's because a lot of people are already trained to do the coal and the gas and the oil companies, and it would take a lot of training, I guess, to get people on these other better options. But I mean, people are always complaining that they don't have jobs. Why not give them a job that's something like better, or retrain them into a better situation for the world? So
on that, I've been really contemplating that, and if we were to train our generation, I'm 29, but like 20 to 30, if we train that generation how to extract natural gas in 20, 30 years, when they're in their 40s and 50s, they're going to be without a job. And the only jobs available energy wise to me in my future, what I want to believe, is renewable energy, because we won't be able to afford these fossil fuels. They're finite. So why not train our young millennials in something that's, in a job that will provide them work long into their life, and they can retire and actually retire and be alive and not lose their life to chemical exposure and black lung. And so yeah, I'm excited about the jobs. In fact, I've read there's 3 times more jobs in renewable energy than the fossil fuel industry. So
I believe that. Okay, let's talk about maybe what are things that are happening in communities, or our community here in Cumberland, or anywhere in general. How can other people get involved? Are there meetings? Are there walks? What can people do to stand with you in your fight?
Yeah. Go online and sign a petition to help ban fracking. The Don't Frack Maryland Coalition has a don'tfrackmd.org website. And you can sign up as a health professional, as a business, and an elected official. And there's also petitions on Food and Water Watch, CCAN, Citizen Shale. You can sign up as an individual on any of those petitions. They all get consolidated. Also the Sierra Club. And as far as town council meetings, I highly suggest showing up. And if you can't show up, write an email to your representative. Cumberland just had a town council meeting on Monday, and there was a lot of support to help ban fracking. And we'll see what happens, but it's going to take more encouraging. They don't have time to put in a ban a ban bill, but they are supporting. They're working to support a statewide ban resolution.
Yeah, I didn't get to make it to the city meeting on Monday, but I had a friend, Hayden, who I heard stood up and spoke about it, and some other people that I know that were there. I saw, I think it was a photo of you a while back at a Frostburg meeting with some dirty water. Was that correct? Did it have to do with fracking? Like you were showing them what the fracking affects water or what it does?
Yeah, that was from Dimmock, Pennsylvania. So that was contaminated well water from the Ely family. And they are one of 19 families that had contaminated water from Cabot Oil and Gas. And many of the families signed a lump sum kind of court order, and they got money and an extensive well water treatment system, but also had to sign a gag order. So they can never speak about oil and gas again, which has happened to many families across this country. But I went to visit the Ely family, who did not sign a gag order and did not accept money. They instead individually took Cabot Oil and Gas to court. And it's been 8 years. They still are without water. They still haven't been paid. And even though Cabot Oil and Gas signed a consent order and agreed to paying them several million, if not $1 billion, they appealed the court case immediately after. So they're back. They're back in court and probably will be the rest of their life because it's $1 billion industry. But Mr. Ely used to work for the industry, got fired once he brought them to court, and has to go and get water twice a week and drive into town, fill up his tank, drive it home, keep it warm all winter so it doesn't freeze. Has had to pay the medical bills for his wife and children who were sick from the off-gassing of these chemicals in his toilets and sink and shower. They were drinking it. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. So when my friend and I went to visit, I brought up spring water from my farm, and they were in tears, just so grateful to have good tasting water. And man.
That's beautiful. A sad story, but beautiful that they were able to accept your spring water. So I guess that's something you could do is if someone tries to pay you to take over your water source, don't allow them to do it. I mean, obviously they have some consequences, but they're able to speak out and be an example of why this is bad. And just stand strong in what they believe in, which I'm proud of them for doing. So you mentioned the city meetings and different things. Something I did want to mention was I had somebody when I ask people about fracking, because we do have that petition that you mentioned here at Mountain Shine, and I've had mixed responses as of you to the response to that when you ask them. And one of the responses I had was it's like I said earlier, they think it's not going to affect Maryland, and if we fight against it to pass, like you said, you mentioned they can't pass the bill right now, that right now we're kind of flying under the radar, where if we would try to pass a bill and fight against it, that it would put us more on their radar and make it a possibility for them to come and to not only not pass the bill, but like make them think more about it, putting it in their mind. Do you think it's more important, obviously, to fight and get that bill passed, or just to make it well known that we do not want it here?
Both. I mean, I think it's hand in hand. I think that we do need to show up and let our legislators know how we feel, because otherwise, how will they? And they're left to their own education, which, they're dealing with a lot, and they can't know everything about every subject. So it's up to us to show the facts and show our concerns, but also understand why we're concerned with fracking. So we share it with our community, and we talk about it, and we share our information, and so yeah, they're both important to do,
right,
and help us form arguments.
In the petition, I know the one we have is for No Frack Maryland. But you have to be from Maryland to sign that petition, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So if you're not from Maryland and you're listening, there is likely something like this going on in your community. I know we have a lot of listeners in Michigan, and there's the Flint water crisis right now is a big thing up there. So if you're for the clean water, which you should be because you need water to exist and live, as well as just the no fracking, check into your own community, look online, do some simple searches, and you'll find a lot of information on how you can too be an activist in your community. As far as that goes, is there ways that we can find you or contact you if we have questions, or what are some other places we can find you and things you're doing, even maybe outside of this?
Well, You can find me at citizenshale.org. We're developing our website. We have one, but it's going to be better. And I also have a farm that I'm trying to build up, but really all of my energy is in this fracking. So we've named it Who Ra, Ra as in the sun god. So you're like, who? And you're like, Ra. And you're like, because we're all here because of the sun. And another place, the Harvest Collective. It's a group that I've been involved with for quite some time. We walked across the country and picked up trash and educated in schools and community centers about our disposable culture, and talked about zero waste. So that's another really beautiful group of friends in Silver Spring, Maryland, that's working to put gardens in cities and instead of lawns. And let's see, I also host a show and tell variety show open mic at Ken's Irish Pub in Friendsville, Maryland. It's the last Thursday of every month at 7:30. And yeah, I'm kind of all over Western Maryland at this point.
Yeah, you are all over the place. Kim and I actually met at a women's empowerment panel for the Power of Possibilities competition, which is it's kind of like a business plan competition run by Garrett County College or community college, and they do a lot of inspiring and getting good people together. And I'm really grateful that they were able to connect Kim and I. And I heard a lot about her farming experience and stuff then before I realized how into the fractivism she was. So I'm glad to have her on board here at Project Bring Me to Life. And do you have anything else about fracking or anything at all that you'd like to share with our community?
Yeah. I was hoping I'd get to share more about air emissions. A lot of this has been about water, but what's coming off of all this infrastructure is really dangerous. It's a lot of particulate matter, 2.5, 5.0, all of which cause cardiac disease and other ailments. But there's also volatile organic compounds, and these are known to cause. And this is a John Hopkins study. They were studying fracking wells, and they saw that there's a 40% increase in premature birth for women who live near fracking wells, which is it's quite significant. And they also found there's an increase in asthma. And in speaking with men who worked in the industry, they've had rashes, nosebleeds, lost hair, and lost teeth. Some are dead now. So it's not just the water to be concerned with, but also the air. So yeah,
that's important to know that that's something that, like I said, a lot of us, we don't know what all it entails. We hear that it has to do with the water and the different things, but it's affecting many different levels of life. And
and to speak to that even further, that what's in the air lands on the soil, and so our soil is being contaminated as well, which is really why I'm concerned, because my farm, we have a lot of woodland medicinals, and we're trying to grow what might be called organic food, and yeah, I'm really concerned about the food that I sell, and it's not ethical to sell food covered in carcinogens, and so yeah, I'm. That is why I am passionate.
There we go. All right. Well, if you don't have anything else you'd like to share, maybe you would like to share a special song for us?
Yeah.
Is it that time? All right. Kim's going to get her guitar for us. We have a special No Fracking song, or the Fracking Song, I think is the actual title. And she's going to get comfortable here and play us that song. And if you're listening and you've enjoyed this message or any of the messages we've shared here today on Project Bring Me to Life, please remember that sharing us via your favorite social media is the best way to share our message with your friends, your family, those who may be inspired, those who may be interested in an interview, any of those things. So please share us. Check us out at projectbringmetolife.com. Leave us a comment on Spreaker, and I'm going to hand off the mic to Kim, who's going to sing us a fracking song.
So I want to share that one day I was sanding the floors in my 100-year-old farmhouse, and this song just came to me, and I was feeling really frustrated with how to reach people. And so I'd been speaking to a lot of people, and they weren't 100% clear about fracking and were telling me things that weren't really accurate, and I was getting frustrated. And so while I was sanding the floor one evening, this song just kind of like came in, and I had to stop everything I was doing and run down the hall and write it down real quick. So yeah, this is called It's Natural, Maybe.
They came with their drills and their big dollar bills. Went to the white boys in the town hall to see if they would follow. And when they drew up on the maps, they circled farms that might collapse. Sell their land, blasted open with sand, leak gas till it was hollow. And with $50 an acre, you can buy a new TV. Just sign your name on the dotted line, hand your rights on over to me. And don't you worry about tomorrow, 'cause the good Lord will provide. It's American pride, it's your right to sign a lease, a gas to Americana. Oh, don't you listen to the news, the scientists are just a snooze. They skewed the facts, it's a terrorist act, climate change is just a liar. 'Cause the rain is gonna fall and clean the toxins we withdraw. So sign today before the EPA drops a hammer on our asses. And with $50 an acre, you can buy a new TV. Just sign your name on the dotted line, hand your rights on over to me. And don't you worry about tomorrow, 'cause the good Lord will provide. It's American pride, it's your right to sign a lease, your gas to Americana.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing when we put music or we create art for things that we're passionate about, because we're not just speaking, we're giving it a different vibration for people to connect with. And I think just like hearing that, like, there are people that are signing off just so they can get new TVs. Like, what is with this? They don't think about what their kids are going to deal with or any of that. And that's just, it's very inspiring and makes you think. Just something about making it think more when it's in music form.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, my brain is like, oh my God, there's so much to share. And I one more thing, permaculture. If you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out. And I want to say that it's given me much hope to know that we can sequester carbon in the soil through reforestation and putting in food forests, and these plants can actually take carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in the soil. So there is hope, but we need to change the way we farm and start focusing on planting perennials.
It's true.
So, woohoo!
Well, we really appreciate that you took the time to come in to the Prevent Midlife studio and to be live with us. And if you have any other news that you want to share with our community, you feel free to get a hold of us. If you are listening and you have questions and you want to send them our way, I'll be sure to send them to Kim and see what I can do for you. So again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited to know that you're here and to tune in to more of your shows. Thank you.
Real quick, what was the main website you wanted people to check out again?
Don't Frack Maryland, don'tfrackmd.org, or Citizen Shale.
All right. Well, that's where you can find Kim. And we're going to go back to our Project Primitive Life station. We have Waves, a sacred sound meditation.
Take care.
Thanks for listening.